Voila. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is an interesting group that we get to have some fun with today. We're focusing on the Secrets of Leadership Forum. Where we're coming from is the message of symposium, a gathering of intelligentsia to share ideas and insights. It's not a workshop, a webinar. Nobody's here to tell you, teach you, sell you, pitch you. We're all here to listen, to share, to see if we can come away cumulatively with a little bit more than where we came in with. And if any of that is of value to you, we have three very unique people on the board here. I'll throw myself into that company. We'll get to introduce everybody in a moment, and you'll each get to introduce yourselves, where you're coming in from, and where you're feeling that. The purpose of the secrets for today and where we're coming in from is really leadership secrets most executives miss, how to lead with resilience, especially when times are tough. Maybe a couple practical tools that the gentleman can share to inspire, help you grow your team. And that's why it's an interactive session with like-minded individuals. So now that we know the format and what's going on and the fun that we're about to have, let me introduce your wonderful host for today. I will start with the amazing Kevin. He has been a tenacious leader in sales executives, training sales teams and doing incredible leadership executive coaching for decades, especially over in the franchise space, where he's now known traditionally as a growth and legacy franchise consultant. That way he helps the people that they are where they are now and growing, and at the same time can help them if they need to bring in a family member or a friend to come take over that business and really transfer on and building that legacy. And in a moment, he's going to add a little bit of meat to the bones and give us a little more about him. And the wonderful Mr. Tim. He's got several decades of experience back from human resource management, leadership across municipal, public, education, nonprofit sections. So he's a seasoned executive coach. He enhances leadership effectiveness. And we're going to get to hear a little bit more about that and where he comes in from his background, his education, experience, and expertise, and how it can play a factor with us today. For me, if you don't know me, my name's Natan. I founded Allura Creative Agency as a way to blow a dog whistle to your target audience, especially executives, leaders, C-suite, those people that are in that place that are genuinely looking for a connection with others, to share ideas, to get inspired, to get some new ways to think about things. That's why we have these type of events. So wonderful. Oh, wonderful. Dr. Peggy, welcome, welcome. Scott, welcome. Steve, Adam, Vinette. Good, good. We have a nice little gathering for today. So while we're on recording, if we could go around the room, we will start with Kevin. Add some meat to the bones and throw out a piece of wisdom, and then pick the next victim. I mean, volunteer.
Well, awesome. Well, great to see everybody. Hey, looks like Natan moving this till the midday is better than the late nights. For thought leadership, I think we need to get the coffee still kicking in so we can be insightful here now.
Amen.
But everybody, my name's Kevin Juza. I'm the Tenacious Leader, and I work with a lot of building of sales teams, coaching, and as especially working with franchise small business owners, really trying to find that next person to help keep the business going. 70% of most businesses transition from one to the next fail. And typically it's a lack of true transitioning from one ownership to the next, and knowledge dumping, business acumen, and just building in ownership of the future. What words of wisdom I kind of came across to share today is the word imposter syndrome. It's actually, we think it as it's like a true burden that we carry, but reality is when you're trying to build a new leader on your team or hire somebody coming into your organization, there is a imposter syndrome that's around them. They don't know if they actually can do the job. You think they can because you've read their resume and they said all the questions all the right way, so you're ready to go. Or you want your daughter or your son to take over your business, but they don't know if they can actually fill those shoes. There's that piece that you have to feel, that power of imposter syndrome to actually meet the next level of your greatness. We've all heard the saying, fake it till you make it, right? We've all heard that. And that's basically summations around that imposter syndrome, but it's actually harnessing it to make it your driving force instead of your weight or anchor that slows you down.
I like that. I like that because I come from a background doing elite energy coaching for about 3 decades with about 15,000 people. And you'd be amazed how many people are at the most incredible peak performance level. exhibiting the most obvious signs of imposter syndrome, and it just doesn't make sense. But I kind of almost don't believe in imposter syndrome in the sense that if you put on a stethoscope and an overcoat jacket with a name tag of doctor and you walk into a hospital, if you are a doctor and you went through medical school, that's not imposter syndrome, no matter how you feel. That's legit. And if you're not, then that's fraud. So that's not imposter syndrome either. So one way or another, I'm thinking people need to clean up and get more in alignment with that. Thank you. That's awesome, Kevin. Tim, give us a little bit more background and share a little wisdom of nugget of
Yeah,
wisdom.
Tom, it's so interesting that you just said that because I have, Kevin, I love the topic of imposter syndrome. And I really do struggle with getting my arms around understanding that. Is it just a competence or doubting your competence? And it's just a kind of uncovering some of the beliefs that are holding you back. I don't know. I think it's an intriguing topic, but I love the way you introduced it. And for everybody on the call today, thanks for joining us. I'm excited to hear from each of you. I'm Tim Malone, and I have been doing executive coaching now for, I don't know, about 5 years. And I have been doing a lot of work, yes, around emotional intelligence, yes, around a growth mindset. But as I got ready for today, I have been thinking also a lot about, I think leaders oftentimes think about what they do, and that's really an important consideration. Leaders have to be aware of what they do. But I think oftentimes leaders miss maybe a larger component, and that is who they are. And so I'm doing a lot of work in the who they are kind of sphere.
Very cool. Thank you. Now, I want to go around the room real quick, have everybody introduce yourself. Take about 30 seconds, a minute, by all means. It's not a race, it's not a rush, but give us more emphasis on a tip that you want to share. And that would be so beneficial to everybody. Think of a little something something on your side. If we have a volunteer, go for it, raise your hand. If not, I come from the former Soviet Union, so we'll do the proper volunteering. Everyone take one step forward and everyone basically takes one step back, except the guy who wasn't listening. Thank you for volunteering. Okay. So I'm going with biggest smile. That seems to be Dr. Peggy.
All right. Well, I liked your, I'm Peggy and I am new to your little forum here. So I want to say hello to everybody. I empower people to become similar to what you were saying, Tim, to find out who they are so that they can actually live in abundance in all the aspects of their lives instead of compartmentalizing everything. And I do that by having people really, really connect with who they are and what it is that might be holding them back. So, a word of wisdom for today. I'm not prepared for that, but I would say just being, since this is leadership, so being the person that you are and the key into being, because in my experience, somebody who is a great leader is somebody who is less telling and more listening. And when you're being present, that's when you're able to do that. So that's my word of wisdom for today. My thought of wisdom.
I like that. Who would you like to hear from next? Very nice.
Let's go with Steve.
I'm Steve, live in Arizona, just outside of Phoenix. I'm an executive coach. I work with clinical entrepreneurs, clinicians that have started their own practice, and essentially I help them build businesses that put money in their pocket, allow them to sleep at night, and actually enjoy the business they're in. And if I can accomplish those three things, it's usually a good day for me, and it's a good day for them. So it's kind of what I do.
That's awesome. Thank you. Who would you like to hear from?
Let's hear from, how about Gary?
Thank you. I'm Gary. I'm currently in Orlando, Florida, or just outside. Missed the last meeting because of the well publicized hurricane, but we escaped with very little damage. Before here, I spent some few years in Montreal, and obviously from my accent, I'm Scottish, so I've moved around a bit. I'm a CEO of a technology business I started. However, I have run a publicly listed company in the past. I have passion for strategy. I think it's a very poorly understood topic in the business world, even at a leadership level. And I'm currently writing a book about strategy and business value creation. My word of wisdom, not really a word, but kind of topic of interest. If you haven't read the book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, I would recommend it to anybody in leadership because it relates to decision making and the power of using intuition over always using extensive data-driven decision-making process. It's a good way to get yourself out of analysis paralysis. And as an ex-air traffic controller, that was a part of my everyday life. So I'm a firm believer in the power of intuition. And so my advice, if you haven't read it, get a hold of the book and read it.
I like that. It was a great read. Yeah. Who do you want to hear from, Gary? Thank you.
Adam.
Yeah, my name's Adam Kuchera. I'm doing some consulting right now as well with a few different companies, and I'm fractional CRO for a media company called Umbrella Street Media, and just helping a number of companies. And I would say my nugget, Natan, would be that what I see consistently, I've seen in the past, and I continue to see with everybody that I engage with, is the need for operational excellence, and that's different forms in different environments, but is just really being very cognizant of all of the pieces and parts that make up a business, and really drilling down and making sure you understand the reasoning behind those elements, and maximizing whether it's the efficiencies, the costs, the benefits, whatever the case might be. So that's something that Gary, talk about books. I've been reading a number of books this summer, and a lot around those efficiencies and really taking that concerted viewpoint. So I think that's super critical for any business of any size in any industry. And I'll pass it over to Vinit.
Thanks, appreciate it. And Gary, I had not read the book Blink before, but I'm looking it up right now. So I appreciate the tip.
You won't regret it.
It's a good one.
Entertaining read, very entertaining read.
That's great. I'm always up for a good read. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for the tip. Appreciate it. I'm Vineet Ahuja. It looks like Vinit Ahuja, but it's Indian. So it's Vineet Ahuja, but I do go by Vinny, just FYI. I'm currently a fractional CEO with a couple of different startups here locally in San Diego, under the umbrella of SD Tech. But yeah, my entire background predominantly is in operations. I would say going back about 30 years now at this point, kind of dating myself, try to shave off all the gray hair so I don't date myself too much there. But yeah, I think from just from the topic on hand in terms of what we started off talking about, the imposter syndrome, I think the biggest thing I would say is that having been in executive level roles, VP and COO, and really for the past 3 decades, is that really I think it comes down to why someone was inherently promoted, right? I mean, all too often, maybe not at the COO or CEO level, you find maybe managers or at the supervisor level, some individuals that might have been promoted, frankly, because there were subject matter experts rather than leaders. And so I think but the efforts there, the desires there, but the coaching and the development has not been. So I think that's where frankly, that's where I've found the imposter syndrome as the topic on hand being evident the most, basically. So just my 2 cents.
That's awesome.
I wasn't doing a good job with the checklist. So I'm not sure who's left. So maybe Scott, I believe.
Well done.
G'day. My name's Scott. I'm currently living in Florida as well. And The only thing I can say really is if you have something that you believe in and you're so passionately about, never stop fighting for it, never stop giving up, despite all the bad days and all the slow days and all the impossible days. Just keep at it, because eventually, if it's meant to happen, it will happen. And I'm living proof of that right now.
I love that. I like how the UK is well represented in this group. Well done,
Yeah.
gentlemen. All right. So let me bring this back to
I don't
Kevin
think
and
we
Tim.
heard from Kevin, did we? Did we hear from Kevin?
We did.
Yeah.
We started on. Yep, we did. We
My
did
bad,
Kevin, we
sorry.
did Tim. I
And
even
what-
popped in a little bit with imposter syndrome and just piggybacked on that.
What about, there's no camera and I don't know how to pronounce it, IDY? IDY?
Oh, I don't see anyone that's not registering. Hold on.
ID Marcus?
Heidi, how are you doing? Can
There we
ID.
go.
you talk?
Oh, so I've got two windows for you. Oh, no. Is there an ID there?
That's right. I just invited them to come on camera if they can. ID Marcus, thank you. If you can't for whatever reason, maybe pop into the chat and let us know if you're driving or something dangerous. Obviously, don't risk life and limb to chat with us. Thank you.
Hey, I
So
always
let me
say
do this. Go ahead,
I was
Vinay.
gonna say I always say this is a face made for radio. So if camera's off is a good deal, I'm all for it.
That's funny. I'm going to pop into the chat booking links and contact info for Tim, for Kevin, and for myself. I'll put that in so everybody has access to that before the end of the event. And if everyone would like to do the same, your LinkedIn profile, or if you have a booking page or something like that, so that other people can get together and we can connect. This is quite the intense group of C-suite and leaders and executives here. And you guys are very humble and kind, so I like it. It'll give us a chance to possibly spark some cool creativity, and you never know what can happen. Now, while we're doing that, we mentioned we were going to be talking about a couple of the cool things popping up today. So in that context, we're looking at 3 leadership secrets most executives miss. And I know we've already gone around the table and heard some very, very cool ones. So I'm going to go and I'm going to start with Kevin. Then I'm going to ask Tim. And then I'll even pop in and see what I can do. Kevin, take us away.
Well, one of my favorite things to talk about is how thoughts become things, and it kind of goes with what we all kind of talked about in a lot of different ways. But for operational expertise, I find myself working in that world too, and it does comes about getting people to say things out loud in your organizations and on your teams, because when they have all their thoughts and they just keep them in because if you're the leader and they're afraid to talk to you, if they don't get those thoughts out, it doesn't really improve the environment. It just holds them back and feels them struggling. But getting them to talk forward and getting the ideas out there, as a leader, you then could spark new ideas coming in. It's like fertilizer coming into your ideas to help you actually lead the organization forward. I was working with one of my clients, and he has a carpet cleaning company, and he's got like 5 drivers. And his dad was the one who was in charge for years, right? He's trying to come up and earn the right to run the business when he retires. And I was teaching him how to actually listen to what people's feelings are and why they weren't keeping the trucks clean, or why they weren't doing this or that, or why they weren't having the supplies. And he started realizing how they felt they were just being, told what to do, and that's all they could do. So finding a way to get their thoughts to come out, and then they were able to actually change the environment and make it more involving people around them. So that's something to really consider out. When you have people around you, from being a consultant at times I've been, you have to really get people to start sharing their ideas, to really get it out in the open, so sun can show, fertilizer can come in, and who knows where it can take you.
Wow.
Can I comment on that?
Please.
It's 100% right, but with a word of caution, I've learned from experience that as you climb the seniority ladder, what you say is received differently. So as a product manager, I could go to a meeting and have a conversation, and everybody would share their thoughts and ideas, and there'd be interesting discussions. But as you climb further and further, even though you think you're making suggestions, those suggestions are received as orders. especially if you're in the C-suite. And it doesn't matter how explicit you are. I've learned this. You can say, look, this is a suggestion, and I will tell you when it's an order. Employees will still go away and believe that because you suggested something, that's what you really want to happen. So actually being in the room is often sometimes not a good idea. And actually speaking in a room is often sometimes not a good idea. And listening is the best approach, which I think somebody mentioned earlier. And as I said, I know that from experience. It took me a long time to figure out what was going on, and to change my approach, especially when I became CEO for the first time. People are scared of title.
Okay. Thank you. Tim?
Yeah, so Gary, I appreciate what you just said. I think the one thing that I'd love to piggyback on is driving the consistent message behind a leader's words. For instance, regularly saying, well, first of all, not being the first to speak, maybe not always being in the room, but then regularly communicating. Just because I have the idea as the leader doesn't mean we have to go with that. I think you need to say that over and over and over again. And so for me, I think it was Peggy who first mentioned a key word for today, which is listening. Kevin, I think you commented on it as well. And then Gary, you just mentioned listening as well. And I think that for me, the myth, this is a simple myth that the leader doesn't have all the answers. And I think a way that, again, this whole conversation about teams and about how you position your team and how you ask for information and how you listen to ideas, how you really, really listen. Like listening is going beyond the words that are being shared. But if you're a really good leader who listens, you're hearing the messages behind the words. And so I think if you're a really good listener, you can, rather than tell, because again, that's something that Peggy mentioned early on today. But I think if you can see your role as an influencer as opposed to a teller, that I think that's a really positive trait of a leader. Something about a leader, who they are, is I'm an influencer.
I like that. Anyone want to comment on that?
I think what Gary said was spot on, but it does take time. So Gary, to your point, I've been as a VP at certain positions, and when you first start off, until they get to know you, you are absolutely correct. You have to be very, very cognizant of the fact that if you make what you think is a suggestion about a direction or an idea, they will take that to heart because they don't know you and you don't know them. So it takes time, right? It takes time to build that culture of trust. That this is more of a listening session, a collaborative session, and you are truly open to ideas and you want to collaborate instead of just walking in and saying, this is the way it is and go with my suggestion. So it just takes time. It's a matter of, as Peggy put it very, very eloquently. Peggy, by the way, I was glad not to follow you. You were so eloquent in your opening. I was very, very thankful not to follow you. Then also, as Tim said, being a listener, but it takes time. Reputations take time and trust takes time. So I guess to me, I would say to piggyback on Gary's point that it just takes time for people to understand that is Vinny making a suggestion? Is he collaborating or is he just we better do as he says? Because I've seen both sides. I've seen leaders that have no interest. I've gone through mergers and acquisitions where in certain mergers a company walks in and says, we're looking for best practices and this is how we'll move forward. And then I've also been part of I was with Time Warner, frankly, I'll be very open about this. Spectrum came in and purchased Time Warner and they just said, this is how we're going to do it. So, I've seen both sides. And of course, as a cliche would go, the first merger, looking at best practices, worked out pretty well, and the second one did not.
I'll just piggyback on top of that, Benito and Gary and Tim. I think the one of the ways that I think over time you can build a team, right? And the team and through your great managers and leaders that you can build, you know, that kind of share your thought process, that can come about. But I think that in that shorter path, if you will, through your own leaders, your own managers, those that report directly to you, through one-on-ones and so on, allowing them to be kind of your conduit at times, right? Gary, you talk about like not even being in the meeting potentially, right? Knowing that that voice is there, that understanding, and that when that frontline person is like, well, he said that we have to do it, that interim person, that manager, etc., that mid-level manager or whatever it might be, can say, let me clarify before we go and spin our wheels or do something crazy. Let me clarify, and that you have a little bit of that buffer could be extremely helpful as you start to build through that, versus trying to be that one-on-one and engagement that you know it's very, very difficult to do. So, but definitely agree with what everybody said.
Hi. I want to say hello. Apologies to everybody for being a little bit behind, having some issues with reconstruction in the abode. So had to wait till everybody left so we weren't overtaken with a lot of noise. I'm Heidi Marcus. I'm in Fairfax, Virginia. I have no idea where everybody else is. Kevin, hello again. Hi. Nice to see you. And I am the CEO of Protect Services. So I'm just listening to what everybody is saying here about, I imagine, leadership. Is that the, in terms of, I've had my own company for, previously I've sold the first one, I sold the second one, and then downsized the third. This is a new venture that I've taken on behalf of my co-founder. And in the past, my clients have been CEOs of major corporations. I've worked with a lot of military, very senior level military, former chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, former secretaries, and also a lot of embassies. And when I've been building teams, one of the things that I've done is to really encourage people to speak their mind, to be honest, to be forthright, because when people don't have a chance to say what they really think, it bubbles up and can boil over into something completely different, that they might not have originally wanted to say, but if they don't have the opportunity to speak and to be critical, I've always asked for criticism from my team members. I've asked for applause as well, and to tell me what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. Some of my employees still say that I'm the first boss per se that they ever had that had afternoon teas with their people and said, please tell me what I'm doing right and what I'm, more important, what I'm doing wrong. And I think when you give your team members an opportunity to know that you're willing to hear what they say, to take unto advisement, you might not always move forward with what they're saying, but you're listening and you're giving it consideration and you're respecting them, especially when you have various generations in the room. You know, so it makes it's different when you're working with somebody from one generation versus another. And also to make sure that everybody has an equal opportunity to speak, because there's always those that that are a little shyer with what they want to say, and they don't feel as comfortable. So encouragement is something that I value.
I'll add to that if you don't mind. I'll add to that as well. I agree. You hear often let people speak, but it's more than that. Certainly in my mind, you have to let people do. I have a lot of experience working for senior leaders who think the best way to run a company is top down, telling the organization what it is that they have to come into every day and do every day. Business is about change. If you want to grow a business, everything you do is about change. You want to increase your revenues, you need to change something. You want to increase your margins, you need to change something. And change can't succeed without buy-in from your employees. And the way you get buy-in from your employees is you have them be the ones that create that change. You don't tell them how to do it. You ask them to come forward with the ideas for how to do it. As a CEO, for the most part, your job is to give direction and motivation and guidance. It's not to dictate from the top what everybody should be doing on a daily basis. So it's more than letting them speak, it's letting them get involved and take ownership of the process.
Oh, I completely agree. Absolutely. But if you don't hear what they have to say, to give them that opportunity to move forward and to take action.
Yep.
And it's all very important, and certainly giving them that chance, they're going to move forward, and you hopefully have guided them in the right direction. So no, I completely agree with that as well.
Don't you love this conversation? Just my observation about hearing everyone is like, when you think about leadership and you think about all the things that the 10 of us, I think there are 10 of us on this call today, the 10 of us are, striving to be really effective leaders, but really, it so much depends on the environment that you're in, so much depends on the industry, so much depends on the team that you have working for you and their experience. Like, that's the exciting thing about leadership, is that there is no cookie cutter or right answer approach. Leaders in the moment are effective because of who they are, and then ultimately how they bring that leadership to life. And I don't know about you all, but that's one of the things that I most love, not only about being a leader, but also then coaching leaders. Just to, to be in the moment and to really grow yourself with your team. So I love some of the dialogue.
One
Agreed.
little nugget, Tim, that you just shared is I'd like to piggyback on what you said. It depends on the industry, right? So, and that's the thing I would say. I've been in software and SaaS and technology for the past couple of, again, decades. I gotta stop saying decades because I make myself sound old. And the one thing I would say, Tim, is that years ago, if you had a proof of concept to bring it to market, it took years. But now today, being in software, I can tell you, if you have an idea, you may have a software idea, you may have an application. The pace at which it can be replicated or even improved upon by a competitor, not just domestically but globally, is insane.
Yeah.
So I know Gary talked about keeping up, and you guys all talked about what industry are you in, and changing and letting people do. And Gary was speaking to in business, what you need to do consistently adapt. I would say in technology more than anything today, the pace at which you can come up with an idea and do the coding and do the everything you need to do to bring it to market is very, very rapid. So it's a very, very being dynamic in that space is extremely important, because it used to be, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it, or just incremental small changes maybe 10-15 years ago. But like I said, today I've seen industries where somebody come up with a brand new idea, a brand new concept, a brand new app that nobody had thought about, and within 6 months there are companies in India, China, Africa, all over the world doing the same thing. So it is something I would say that's a new element that we did not have, I would say, frankly, 20 years ago.
Yeah. Good point.
Could I ask a favor? Could everybody go around and tell me your name? I'm sorry, and what you do, just to give me a little bit of.
Gentlemen, I think we might have an interesting challenge. So everyone had a chance to do the 30-second to 1 minute intro. I will ask you to do it in 10-15 seconds. Give us a quick background. And Heidi, everyone that showed up today gets a copy of the full. So everything that you missed and all the intros, and everybody gets a copy. Those that registered, we had another 6 that registered that didn't make it. They just get little snippets, and get invited next month. So, pas problem, it'll all be invited. No worries. But gentlemen, let's begin. Kevin, start us off.
It is good to see you again, Kevin, the tenacious leader from San Diego.
Wow, well, that was impressive. Tim?
I'm Tim Melone. I'm in Chesapeake, Virginia, not too far from you, and I'm an executive coach.
Beautiful. Pick the next volunteer.
And Steve?
Steve Allred, Gilbert, Arizona, just outside Phoenix, and I'm an executive coach for clinical entrepreneurs.
For what entrepreneurs?
Clinical.
Oh,
Clinicians who started their own practice.
Great.
Let's
Thank
go
you.
with Peggy.
I'm Peggy, and I am in Phoenix, Arizona, just up the road from you. And I am an empowerment coach.
Excellent. Who else would you like?
Gary.
I'm Gary. I'm CEO for a speech recognition company, also founder. Transitioning into consulting and writing a book on strategy and business value creation called The Accidental Strategist.
Nice. Who would you like to hear from?
My mind's not so good. Scott, don't think Scott's gone.
My name's Scott. I'm in Florida as well, and I think that I might be somewhat an entrepreneur, inventor, and engineer, all wrapped up in one. So I'm trying to be anyhow.
I've never been an engineer. That's not an entrepreneur.
True. Is Peggy been gone yet?
Vinette, since you were speaking, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Just Vinny Huja. I'm currently a CEO with a couple of I would say tech startups, to put it mildly. But I've been basically on the operations side as an executive for the past 30 years, and Marine prior to that. So anyhow, thanks. When you mentioned
Adam?
military, I just wasn't at that level. I was just more at the couple of ranks below that level.
What in the Corps did you do?
I was an artillery officer.
Ah,
I was enlisted as a forward observer, and then I went on to as a sergeant. Then I went on to officer candidate school. So
our founder
I
and
guess
you would have a lot to talk about.
as Marines would say, I decided not to work for a living. That's what happens when you leave the enlisted ranks and become an officer. So, sorry. Thanks.
I like that. I like that. Very cool. And that would be Adam. Did you speak?
Nope. Adam Kuchera, fractional CRO and also consultant. I live here in Denver.
Awesome. And for little old me, I have a Lure creative agency, and I put on these wonderful, one-of-a-kind events for leaders to meet other leaders, talk amongst themselves, share ideas. And my background is as an elite energy coach with Cirque du Soleil for about 3 decades. So that's where I get to play.
Thank you,
Awesome.
everyone.
We're now caught up. Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome. So the third and point that we wanted to make, and I think I will pop in on this one, it was about resilience in tough times. And when you're leading your team, when you're leading whichever team it is, from software teams to sales teams to tech teams to customer service teams or any other ones in between, there's a beautiful natural ebb and flow. Not everyone feels great every day, all day, or that would be weird. We have to go through that in business as well. And just being able to pay attention to and acknowledge that not every day is amazing, and not every single thing that we're going to be doing in business is going to resonate with you to that highest level. But know that this too will pass. And if there's a chance to go through it and know that this may be a tough time, acknowledge it, own up to it, lean into it, own it, and know that that could be one of the greatest and strongest team building exercises that you could possibly do. I joke and I say that the giant 7-foot sticker behind me was a great team building exercise for me and my wife of 30 years, because you get one shot to put up that sticker. If you put it up crooked, you're screwed. So that's an example that there's resilience in tough times. Acknowledge the tough times. Don't gloss them over. Acknowledge them as something different than yesterday, because they are. And acknowledge that there will always be an up and down, and this too will pass. And if we all lean in together, there may be a little bit of strengthening and hardening and conditioning that happens, and your whole team may be able to actually thank you for it and get a little bit tougher.
I think part of building a resilient team is just reminding them what they've already accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
I had a team where we had a member of the founding team pass away, lost a huge client, went through quite a few things. And so when the pandemic came, it was just like, come on, guys, we've done this before. We know how to get through tough times, and let's lean into it. And everybody rose to the occasion. So it was just reminding them that they had the capacity to do it.
Yeah.
I like that. Is it kind of like when you're, going out on a long trek and you feel like, oh my God, the finish line is so far away, and then you kind of look back and go, holy crap, look at how far I've come? Is it like that,
Pretty
Steve?
much.
Okay.
I think there's that, and there's also just recognizing that says, okay, I know what this trail feels like. Even if it's not the trail I've been on, I know what it feels like. I've done something like this before. I can do this. I think it's really building in your team that belief that I can do this. Out in Arizona, I've hiked the Grand Canyon about 10 times, and it's amazing how much easier on try number 8 or 9 it is than the first one. And that trail has not changed one bit.
Interesting.
But it's just your mindset of saying, okay, I've done this before, I can do it. So mind over matter really is a big thing when it comes to resilience.
But it also starts with the team leader. In fact, before anything else, I think everybody in this room has experienced executives and even senior managers that believe that they own their team. They have a choice when they come in the morning, make their lives miserable or make their lives happy. And leadership is kind of a dangerous word. You think you own this team and they're yours to do with as you want. And an analogy might be the wrong word that I often talk about is that there's 3 groups of people in an organization. The first group is the support functions like HR and finance and even cleaning and warehouse, etc. A company can't operate without them. The second team are the direct employees, the ones who do things that you can charge money for. Different businesses have different names for that, but every hour they spend working, you get to charge to your customers. The third one, so they're your profit makers. The third one is the executives, and executives are at the end of the day consumers of your profit. Right? They don't generate profit themselves. They're consumers of the profit that your company makes. So if that's the case, what is their function? Well, their function is to make sure that those other 2 tiers are provided with the environment, the opportunity, the tools, the culture, so on and so forth, that allow them to do the best job that they can do. And sadly, too many people that get to the vice president or above level think that that's not the case, and they micromanage everything their team does. Some of them even so far as being negative on a daily basis. Their insecurities creep in and they want to make sure that they look good to the CEO, so they blame their employees for things that are going wrong. And at the end of the day, if you're an executive, the responsibility stops with you, not with the members of your team. So executives, you consume profit. If you want to continue to consume profit, you need to make sure your teams make more profit to recover most of what you consume and much more. That's the way I look at executive teams.
I like that.
Recently,
Assertive
I came
leadership,
across
yeah.
a post from Elon Musk. In fact, I think I saw it on LinkedIn. And somebody asked him the question, like, what makes him different to GM? And as he said at Tesla, there's no rooms of lordship. There's no executive bathrooms. There's no higher floors. Everything is together for everybody. Whereas in the GM building, they have a special elevator just for the GM executives to be taken to their top floor, and they have special treatments for executive bathrooms and their own areas to eat and all that, which is separate from the workers. Whereas in Tesla, it's not like that. Elon eats on the floor with everybody else. The managers eat with the workers. And even with the workers, many were given stock options when they were employed, and most of them didn't even know what stocks were. And yet many of them are now millionaires putting those cars together. And Elon knows many of them by first name because he's been actually on the assembly lines working with those people. So, and I am no fan of Tesla. I am no fan of EV cars. That's just my personal preference. But the way Elon is running Tesla, I think that's a very good testament to true leadership. And leading through your ears and not your mouth, I think, is another important thing.
And what's interesting is
One
what's
of
the
what?
what's the
Oh,
old what's the old Pontiac had the Saturn, and Saturn in the 80s came out, broke the model, and they were able to make the assembly line have a ripcord to stop the assembly line, and empowered the people to stop production when they saw a flaw. So it's interesting how full circle things have come, but some things don't ever change.
Sadly,
ahead.
it wasn't enough for Saturn, though. It's
no
absolutely
kidding.
the right thing. Avis did a similar thing many years ago. They told their employees that they were empowered to solve customer problems without asking for permission. If that meant giving somebody a car free for a few days, they were empowered to go do that. And it took a long time for that to kind of establish itself, because people didn't believe that wasn't the way things were run before. You want to buy a packet of pens for the front desk, you need to sign a purchase acquisition form and get it signed by 5 different people. I've been through that. But that empowering the employees to do what's right it makes a huge difference.
One of the things that is very important with the company that I'm building, we are a startup, and Protect Services is the first of its kind on-demand close protection security company working strictly with an intimate partner, domestic violence and stalking. We deliver you to safety. So our on-the-ground protectors are all US veterans, highly trained in the proprietary method that our founder, US Marine, created when he was in the close protection industry for 30 years with very high level, with the 1% in the population. But one of the things that we enforce in terms of with our protectors on the ground, because they will have to think very quickly at times, even though they will know the situation. We are not in place of law enforcement. We fill the gap. And these are issues that are escalating rapidly. They are everywhere. And stalking can be something that many people don't speak about, from in the corporate environment as well, from C-suite all the way down. But the point for us is that we will be empowering our protectors to make decisions quickly, and they have to feel that kind of a comfort level. They will have to pivot quickly sometimes depending on the circumstance. And so that opportunity to think quickly, effectively, efficiently, and empowering them with the knowledge that they have, it's going to change very rapidly sometimes in the circumstance. So that empowerment to make a change is very important to them and important to us. And knowing that we have the confidence level and they will be trained accordingly, but giving them that opportunity to think quickly when they have to. And again, they do have lives in their hands from the minute that they meet our subscriber, and effectively, efficiently move them to safety, their families and their pets as well. We're a very pet-friendly company.
I like that. So let me ask, because I know that we'll run out of time soon, as a small favor to us, if we could go around the room, take 30 seconds or less, and just shout out anything that you feel you might have liked, learned, anything that you felt was at a value of use of your time for today. If you liked it and you'd like that, we would love to know if we can just blast that out on social media and tag you so that we get some more exposure to you as well. If that's okay, let's go around the room, take 30 seconds or less, give us a little bit of something that we can use for you, and bring that extra attraction and extra traffic over to your side as well of the world. So who'd like to start us off?
I'll start. I like the idea that role of a leader is to listen to the messages behind the words and be an influencer and not a teller, or an influencer versus a teller.
I like that. Thank you.
I think a number of the topics that we talked about today revolve around some of the challenges of leaders and challenges that companies are having right now. And I think that a lot of great insights and thoughts on kind of how to take pieces of that and try to take on, instead of eating the whole elephant all at once, right? Take a little bite and try to tackle some of those things a little at a time.
Very cool. Thank you.
I think the comment about the industry, different industry sectors and the approach and how everybody is coming together to understand, in terms of what industries we are all in, how that affects the way that we work with our teams. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to manage well and to lead well, and that we don't certainly know everything, and to encourage our teams to be as positive and have as direct effectiveness and positivity as they can.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback on that, I mean, can you imagine the industry you're in if they had the same levels of check and balances and having to ask for permission of their leaders, being in a volatile, hostile situation, again, being a Marine, being in combat, having to check with somebody else on what they do, what not they do instead of acting. Of course, industry matters, right? So at that point, you have to make a decision. You have to empower people. But in Avis, somebody could say, hey, my permission is only to give you $100 credit, $100 and above, I need to go to a manager, right? And to Gary's point, the levels of checks and balances to get approval to buy a $5 box of pens, you probably spend $50 in just getting the approvals to buy that $5 box of pens. But it is possible in that industry, whereas in the industry you're in, it's not possible, right? So I think that's just the key thing. And then the point that I was making all the way back earlier is that being in technology today, it's a very, very dynamic industry. Like I said, if you're not innovating, you're not keeping up, you're not evolving. Heck, I mean, forget about evolution. In technology today, you have to think revolution. Because if you're just making minor tweaks to your industry, you're not going to get anywhere. And then, earlier as Lee was Scott, who was talking about Tesla, the thing about Tesla, I would say just real quick, as the last one is that Elon's never been just the one to say, hey, let's just make a small incremental improvement. Ford and GM can't even make a car for a profit today in the EV field because he is light years ahead. And that's what we as leaders need to do today in today's environment, is to basically, from a strategic perspective, where we add value the most, Gary, I would say not to be just consuming profit is a strategy, and just keeping your industry and your company just looking ahead forward and how you properly evolve.
Remember that
Can I just piggyback just 1 second? You also mentioned, there are proper protocols and policies in place, and there are nuances to the way that you move forward with your subscribers, with your customer base. But at the same point, I like what you said. There are differentiations as well in order to make those decisions. Policies and procedures are very important, but empowerment certainly to make the right call.
So a lot of talk about empowerment, which is quite right, but let's not forget that there's a matching thing. You can't have empowerment without a no blame culture. If somebody makes a mistake and you're gonna haul them over the coals for it every time it happens, then you're not really empowering people. You're instilling fear. So they go hand in hand. For me, even though we haven't used the word, what's interesting is it appears that we all favor servant leadership, which is quite unusual for a group of people, for everybody to have that same mindset. I hope it's true, and I'd like to see it more widespread. Of course, you can't only be a servant leader. There are times when you have to be an autocrat or a dictator, depending on the circumstances. But I find it very interesting that, at least in this group, everybody seems to support the idea of servant leadership.
Very much so. And thank you for that. Let me pop into the chat. This is Kevin's, Tim's, and my booking links. If anyone would like to continue the conversation, if you'd like to do a deeper dive, if you'd like to tap into these two gentlemen and the wealth of knowledge and information, they come from very different angles and can produce a very different take on whatever it is that you're looking at. For me, on my side, I would invite each and every one of you next month please come back. The topic will change. The conversation will change. The people will change. We invite you to bring a friend. This is never going to be a networking event. We don't want 56 people here. 5 or 6 is nice. A little bit more is nice. So given that chance, bring one person that you think may impact this conversation and help share something that others want to hear, or that they may be impacted by what they've heard today, and that they could actually come back to their people and have that impact. So we invite everyone to come back next month. We invite everyone to bring a friend. We invite everyone to book a one-on-one with Tim, myself, with Kevin. And we want to say thank you, thank you. I'm going to let the conversation go for another couple of minutes. I just wanted to pop that in before the end, because you never know how we get carried away. So thank you, everyone.
I'm not sure we heard from everyone, but my takeaway is this has been a great conversation. I wish that we had more time. I'd love to hear how the 9 of you think about resilience. We didn't talk enough about that. And I think it's fascinating that the thing that causes us to be resilient is something external for the most part, but whether or not we develop the resilience is something very, very internal. And I would love to know what makes a resilient leader, what you've used to build your own resilience, and how to stay true to yourself in the face of difficulty, obstacles, and change.
I like that. And I think next month we may re-look at that topic of resilience. Maybe a great topic for next month.
Yeah.
I like to just draw a line between kind of something we said and what we were talking about. One is Vinny, you talked about the how fast the technology is moving. And with AI coming in, we almost went a whole hour without saying AI, but the AI coming in and automation and making it all more process easier and all that. But what we talked about the most today was people.
Mm.
And our companies are made up of people. Maybe it's not going to be 3,000. Maybe now it only needs to be 2,000 for bigger companies because of AI, but it's going to be our people that really make our difference. We might have to have technology that changes manufacturing processes that got to be doing things differently, or however to solve or be more efficient. But when it comes down to it, is how do we create teams of people that actually are aligned and really value their customers and really try to solve problems. So I appreciate everybody coming today and sharing your insights. Wow, my brain is like popping ideas right now. So thank you so much, everyone.
Love it.
Thank
Love
you.
it.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Terrific. Nice meeting everyone.
See you all next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.